What's going on, guys? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS core plays for this week's Players Championship. Excited to be there on site, and boy oh boy was that finish at the API bonkers. Having all those guys in contention, a lot of guys in our player pool as well, including Kurt Kitayama, the winner. So it was a fun week, a successful week, but looking forward to another elevated field in one of my favorite courses around the PGA Tour and TPC Sawgrass. One with a bunch of water, volatility, Florida golf at its finest. And here in this core plays video, going to break down the top end of the Draftkings pricing board in 4 GPP plays that I have my eye on for some of those large field contests. They are high upside players that I expect to fit the course this week, and for one reason or another, they should be at least relatively low owned or low owned enough to get to in some of these contests to try and get that much needed ownership leverage. So looking forward to it, hoping to build on last week where of course Rory, a close second again, had Kurt Kitayama, but guys like Harris English, right, another value play who went off for us. Jordan Spieth, a value pick, or sleeper pick I should say, nearly ended up winning the golf tournament for us. It was favorable both for main slate, showdown, and the prop side. Actually paid for my vacation on its own, just there on Sunday alone. So quite the weekend there, and like I said, looking to run it back. So let's go ahead, hop right into these core plays and get this thing started. As we typically do with these core play videos, let's go ahead and start with a look at our key stats. So over here on the key stats tab, you can see at the top, looking at off the tee play, which is different than last year. So a little bit of a change in focus because of the reported rough length, which last year was only 2.5 inches. I can tell you it was pretty much non-existent for most of the golf course, but a few select little places, like you see on a few of the side hill lies around the players, had like 3-inch rough, and now they're calling for 3.5-inch rough across the golf course. And if that is truly indeed the case, this course is going to play a lot different than what we've seen in the past. 3.5-inch rough would make the course play significantly longer, more difficult. It would make holding these greens, though, receptive greens out there, a little bit more difficult than they were before. And instead of maybe right around an even par scoring average, I think it would jack it up to a half a stroke or even a stroke over par. I'm playing kind of similar to an Arnold Palmer, depending on that wind. So I think it could get a little bit spicy this year. I'm going to be on site for the Wednesday Pro-Am, so I'll get a, up close and personal look at that rough, be able to give you guys an idea on the Wednesday live stream. So stop on by at 7 p.m., right? Get the insider look on what that rough is looking like. But if that is indeed the case, this distance number could go up even more. So still looking at accuracy, looking at good drive percentage, the way to encapsulate that. But at least based on some of the early readings, I think it might be a Bombers type of week, though you do have to be accurate around a golf course with water on 17 of 18 holes. Shots gained approach at number 2. That was number 1 last year, so that was the little change at the top. Still looking at a relatively balanced approach portfolio, except that this 250 plus yard range is weighted a little bit more heavily this week than most. And you may say, only a 2% weighting. What do you mean? It's typically like a 0.5% weighting. So about 4 times more important this week than most. Those par 5s are reachable in 2. And for pretty much the entire field, they're all going to go after it with something like a 3-wood or maybe a driving iron. So those are a little bit more important this week than they are in most. That mid-tier range, the 125 to 150 for some of the shorter par 4s, definitely come into play a little bit more often here. In terms of around the green play, I'm looking at numbers on Bermuda. There's an art form to around the green on Bermuda, so I'm looking at that. It's an extremely sticky surface. Looking at putting with Bermuda overseed, the greens this week are a Bermuda base layer overseeded with a POA Tribolus. Kind of similar to what we had at PGA West, right, for the Amex, a few other events that, part of the schedule. So we'll be looking at some of those other courses as comps later. Par 5 scoring, shots gained during the Florida swing, a few things I'm adding to the model. Shots gained approach out of the Bermuda rough. And then for our comps, we've got East Lake, Bay Hill, PGA National, TPC Southwind, Sedgefield, and Harbor Town. Most of these have the same agronomy, or at least close, right? A lot of them are Bermuda grass based courses. Some of them are hybrids like you have there for this week. And most of them have a bunch of water on property too. They're not all Florida golf courses. Let's see. 2 out of the 6 are, but a lot of them similar kind of styles off the tee. You have to be relatively precise there, and all well worth looking at for some of the tournament crossover. And now for our core plays. So with all of that in mind, we're essentially looking for a balanced golfer that more than anything, is a ball striker. If you look at a lot of the correlation data, the number 1 and 2, I should say, correlated stats there are shots gained off the tee and shots gained approach. So it's no surprise that I'm going to Jon Rahm here with my core play. He's $11,800. The most expensive player by $800, and that is well deserved. The pricing came out when he was winning this golf tournament last week. Was 7 under par. He was plus 150 to win the event, and I called him out for being just an egregiously mispriced player. Right, he should have been like maybe plus 350, plus 400. But he by no means, right, did I expect him to go out there and blow up. So this week, I know he's overpriced. I think that's going to keep ownership down on him, right? He's way more expensive than he should be. He has the downward sentiment with the 3 really negative rounds to end the week, but he gets to hit the reset button and go to a course that he's been pretty consistent at when everyone else has been wildly inconsistent. So you can see he's made the cut the last 5 years. His best finish was in 2021 where he top 10, had a T12 there in 2020. Nothing crazy like a top 5 or a win, but look at everyone else's record, right? 3 missed cuts, made cut, missed cut. I mean, even Rory has 2 missed cuts out of his last 5 starts, including the win. Can't make a cut here. I mean, even Homa, right, who we're going to talk about as a core play here shortly, made a cut and then a T13. So out of the entire field, right, everyone's kind of been inconsistent here except for Jon Rahm. While the consistency has been nice, I do have to say that there's so much water in property that he could go out there, eject himself by just having that left miss hit him a few more times this week like it did at the API. But given the track record, I definitely think he's comfortable with some of the tee shots around TPC Sawgrass. And given the shots gained metrics, I mean, if you're looking for a ball striker, I mean, Jon Rahm's your guy, right? Going to gain prolifically off the tee, even with the kind of shaky performances over the last 2 off the tee, still gaining 0.4 strokes per round, gaining close to a stroke per round on approach. Around the green has been actually a huge plus for him for pretty much the last 6 months, a huge hole in his game that he plugged. And then the putter, he's putting well above his baseline, and if you compare it to his numbers on this Bermuda with the overseed, you can see it's actually a huge negative, but literally any surface is going to be a huge negative for Jon Rahm right now, but he's getting close to a stroke putting per round. So if you're looking for an informed golfer, look for Jon Rahm. A lot of people are going to overreact to those last 3 rounds, and personally, with the inflated price tag because of the the timing there with the pricing, I think we might be looking at a 15, maybe 20% owned Jon Rahm at the very most. And to me, sounds like something that I want to sign myself up for. Next up, we've got ourselves Max Homa. I promised we would get to him shortly. $9,900. I think it's a fair price tag given how he's looked over the last 4 or 5 months. Looks like a top 5 player in the world, if not even potentially up there in the top 3 or 4 with that big 3. That's to be debated, right? We'll have to see if this continues. But the event history, a little bit sporadic, has 2 starts here, a made cut and a missed cut. The T13 last year was his best start. But when you take a look at the shots gained metrics, he's clearly different. He's built different at this point, as some of the young kids like to say. Gained in a bunch of strokes off the tee, has gone a lot more accurate with that little punch fade that he has started to hit. He flights it down, keeps it in the fairway. In fact, has started to become a plus player off the tee when it comes to driving accuracy, which is a complete night and day difference from what we looked like there a year and a half, even just 2 years ago. The approach play, he's one of the best players in the field, gaining 1.1 strokes per round, and the putter has also been electric, and that's kind of always been his MO. He's been one of the better flat stick players in all the PGA Tour, but now that we're getting him to hit fairways, lean into that approach play, he's not only posting elite level ceilings like we've seen, he's also starting to give us that floor. And at $9,900, we're hoping to get that floor here. And while just like a Jon Rahm, right, no player is going to be invulnerable to the cut line, I really like that he's starting to get more accurate, right? He can go to that patented ball flight, that consistent low little fade that he's been hitting, and hopefully keep it in play a little bit more than most players. In either circumstance, I think you're looking at an elite level player that's ascending at this point, right, is taking his game to the next level, and while he's on this heater, is somebody that I'm looking to ride. Next up, we've got ourselves Will Zalatoris, but before we hop into these last 2 plays, just want to remind you, if you're looking for access to all of my modeling, right, everything that's blacked out on here, all my player pool ownership projections when they're dropped here in the next day or so, make sure to check out the Patreon. There's a link down below. It's $10 a month, gets you access to all of my spreadsheets. You can download them, take all the projections, use them in your optimizers, ledgers for any of your own analysis, whatever you guys want to do. And of course, also includes all my prop analysis. So if you're playing on Underdog or on Prize Picks, I'm posting a lot of write-ups there on that. And overall, probably the best value over there in the entire fantasy industry, let alone over here in the golf industry. But back to it. Shameless plug aside. Let's hop into Will Zalatoris, who I've talked up multiple weeks in a row now, and I'm going right back to it. He paid off the first time. This week, right, made the cut at the very least, right? Wasn't really what we're looking for there at the API, but the ball striking and tee to green play was vintage Will Zalatoris, right? Gained in all three categories, just wasn't really himself at the putter, which we're used to seeing, right? He's not the most consistent putter on the PGA Tour. He was over there on the regular Bermuda, and now we get him back to the hybrid surface, which historically hasn't been his best. In fact, last year at the Players and the year before that, when he posted top 25 finishes, didn't really light it up at the flat stick, but look at this. T26, 21st there a couple years ago at this same event, and that was despite not having the flat stick. But if you look at this season on these hybrid surfaces, or even towards the latter half of last year, he was a huge gainer, gained 3-4 strokes at times on them. So if we can continue to hit the ball tee to green like he has, and he's done this for 3 events at this point, Will Zalatoris does not look injured to me, and maybe it flares up, right? That could be the Achilles heel for Will Zalatoris this week, but last week came in lower owned than I expected. So if we're going to get a relatively sneaky Will Zalatoris at a course that I think is going to play a little bit more gnarly this year with that long rough, and that's another thing I meant to mention, with a Jon Rahm, Will Zalatoris, and Max Homa, all of them have thrived, and I mean thrived, have some of their wins, some of their best performances at US Open kind of conditions, right? Whether it's major championships with a Willie Z or Jon Rahm, or like a Genesis, where somebody like a Max Homa over there, all 3 of them I like when conditions get gnarly, where the off the tee play is really going to be rewarded for both being long and accurate. That's what all 3 of those players have. And Will Zalatoris, right, the event history, I know it's only a 2-event sample, but he made the cut both times. Not many people can say that, right? I mean, you go down here, everyone's got a missed cut in here. I mean, like literally everyone has a missed cut. And sure, maybe the missed cut happens this year for Will Zalatoris, but I think, to be 2 for 2 for made cuts here means a little bit more around this track than it does for most. So I like him here. The shots gained speak for themselves. He's gaining from tee to green like you'd expect, gaining close to 3/4 of a stroke per round off the tee, a little bit over 0.6 strokes per round on approach, and a gainer around the green and a gainer with the putter. So I love what I'm seeing from Willie Z. $8,800 is more than fair enough for somebody of his caliber. And again, all of this comes down to ownership, right? Ownership, if it's super high in any of these 4 players, we might have to reconsider for that Wednesday live stream. Also, weather can be a huge concern when it comes to some of these plays. So we're going to have to consider that as we get a little bit closer to lock. But any vacuum looks like an excellent play here for TPC Sawgrass. And finally, the last play I'm getting to, a newcomer here, so no event history to speak of. Tom Kim at $8,100. The numbers on this Bermuda hybrid look fantastic, right? Gaining 3/4 of a stroke per round. It's a small sample, right? I don't really care about all of that. What I care about is that we want to get them at a shorter track, right? At TPC Sawgrass, while it's not one of the shorter tracks in all of the PGA Tour, it's about average in terms of its length. And if it's an average length course, Tom Kim can take care of it because his long irons are more than capable. And if you're looking for a player to keep it in play, avoid some water, set up some angles into these tricky Pete Dye greens, he's your guy, right? He's one of the most accurate players on tour, up there with a Colin Morikawa, somebody like a let's see, Sanjay M in terms of that driving accuracy, Brian Harman up there in that range. And the shots gained metrics have been there except for the putter. So you look over here, gaining off the tee, gaining with the approach play, gaining around the green, and just losing about 1/3 of a stroke per round with the flat stick. So I know it's a small sample, but if there's something to that hybrid surface, right, that he tends to like, right, sometimes it's just the look of the green, sometimes it's just being comfortable on that surface, and we get him going back there and being electric with the flat stick like we've seen a lot of times for somebody like Tom Kim, then maybe he goes out there and gets us a win. On top of that, over there at the Shriners, a similar type of green surface, went out there and won. He won at the Wyndham Championship, one of our 6 comp courses for this week. And though he doesn't have that event history, which I think experience around here can be important, willing to look past it, right? Tom Kim, he's a world-class player. I think given the recent form, how he hasn't really lit it up over the last few weeks, he's not going to be super chalky, right? 34th, 45th, 50th, right? At this point, I think there's going to be some fatigue there. He might even be single-digit owned for this tournament. And I really like the course fit. I like the numbers on this surface. If you're going to give me a single-digit owned Tom Kim, sign me up. I'm going to play him in bunches. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for this week's core plays. Before you hopping out of here, go ahead, comment down below who you've got winning. It just can't be a 10K golfer. So for me, I'm going to take Will Zalatoris. I'm expecting this long rough to play into his favor, and hopefully we get some slightly firmer greens than what we've seen over the last few years. But unfortunately, probably going to be some rain in the forecast, but still love Woodley Z. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments what you guys are thinking on that end. Also, smash that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. Think you're a little bit more prepared for your research this week. And going into the rest of the week, we'll have our value plays dropping later on this evening, our fades and sleepers, and of course, that also important Wednesday live stream at 7 p.m. Eastern, where I'll be touching on what I saw out there at the Pro-Am. So, gonna wake up there early on Wednesday, drive up the Ponte Vedra, get that little scouting report in, and then bring all the goods back for you guys there that evening. So looking forward to it. Like I said, super excited to be on site all week there in Ponte Vedra. Best of luck with all of your lineups, any outright bets that you guys decide to go with. I've already bet all 4 of these players outright this week, and probably looking to add at least 2 to 3 more by the end of the week. So I'll also update on that end when we get to the live stream on Wednesday. But like I said, best of luck. Thank you guys for all the support here on the channel. You're coming by and supporting all the content, consuming it here. Best of luck, and I'll catch you guys next time.